Hey, welcome back to Matter of Fact. Today, we're going to get into news and notes, just news around the league, training camp stuff, where we're getting closer and closer to the season starting, that first kickoff. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing good. Excited to be back. Fantasy football season, fantasy football drafts are coming up. This is when we're starting to get important news and notes, not just fluff. So definitely ready to get into it.
And so we're starting off with the Atlanta Falcons, alphabetical order, pretty much.
Yeah, we'll probably just give them the news and notes, give them some updates, player updates. Try to inform them on what's important and try to inform them on like what they don't need to worry about. I know around this time of the year, you get a lot of Twitter articles and a lot of hot takes from people. So we just want to clear the air and let you know what you really need to concern yourself with and what doesn't really matter at all. Just some talking points.
Facts. So you got that ready?
Yeah, let me pull that up for you right now. And I guess what we can do is we can start off with the Atlanta Falcons, like you said, going in number order. Basically, right now, as you guys know, in fantasy football drafts and best ball drafts, everybody is very, very high on Bijan Robinson, deservedly so. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL, also one of the youngest running backs in the NFL. But you should still keep in mind that Tyler Algier is really, really good at football too, and he will also be receiving some playing time, and he will also probably dip into some of the touches that Bijan Robinson will be receiving this year.
And I think that was the point of them drafting him so high, even though they had a 1,000-yard rusher in Algier when they did, is to kind of have a two-headed monster. The one workhorse back thing is kind of old school. It's better for the longevity of the players, and you could really mix it up. Tyler Algier is more of a power back, and Bijan's more of a he could do it all. And
Yeah,
so,
sure.
yeah, that offense is going to be looking crazy. I'm expecting a lot from all their good pieces like Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Now that they have somebody competent under center and somebody and a contingency plan just in case Kirk Cousins gets hurt. He's getting older and he's coming off an injury as well.
And I mean, they're solid. They have a solid wide receiver core. Again, not trying to say that they have this great wide receiver core or even a top five wide receiver core, but they have all of the type of wide receivers you would possibly need on a team. They got the big body X wide receiver. They have the gadget guy in Rondell Moore who has like speed, and then they have a solid wide receiver too. And oh my god, I can't believe I just forgot his name. He was Darnell Mooney. There we go, and Darnell Mooney. So I think they're going to be a good team if they can stay healthy at quarterback. They already had one of the most underrated offensive lines in the NFL, which is actually one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And I think with a functioning quarterback, they'll be a solid team to draft in fantasy.
On top of that, just off the fantasy tip, I think they're one of their biggest issues is addressing that pass rush, which that's what everyone thought they were going to do with that first first pick, but they went offense again for like the fifth time in a row, picking out the top 10. So that's going to be one of their bigger issues. But I think they're hoping that a high volume offense kind of eases the load for them there. But
And next, we'll move on to the Arizona Cardinals, where it looks like Greg. Everybody knows about Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. They're obviously going to be the studs of the defense of the offense, and they're going to be the ones that receive the majority of the touches. But do not be surprised when the offensive aerial attack for the Arizona Cardinals is using other players. They do kind of have a solid veteran wide receiver core now, and since they're going to get Kyler back, this could potentially be one of the more electrifying offenses in the NFL this year.
it's weird because somehow Kyler Murray kind of feels underrated now. It's kind of crazy. I think that last playoff game against the Rams, I think during their Super Bowl run, then they ended up winning the Super Bowl, which I feel like people got to keep in mind. It's kind of a good look when you lose to the Super Bowl champions. I mean, it's like a constant, like, hey, we lost, but at least they went on to win it. But it was a terrible performance. But I mean, the talent's there. We saw that towards the end of the season when he got back. We saw that without Kyler Murray, that they weren't an easy team to just run through, even though their roster seemed really depleted. And now Marvin Harrison there to replace what they had with that D-Hop Kyler connection. Greg Dortch is underrated. Michael Wilson definitely underrated. And, Zay Jones was a great addition. So, damn, I was kind of asleep going over there, man. And then James Conner still.
Now, apparently another thing that we should let you guys know, I know for best ball and fantasy purposes, Trey Benson has been a very, very popular prospect. Solid runner coming out of college, played for Florida State. And, he is an electrifying runner. I actually would have loved if the Cowboys were able to draft him. He wasn't able to fall to us. But, looks like it's James Conner's backfield right now. And, he is the replacement for James Conner once his football lifespan is done with. And, when James Conner is not with the Cardinals anymore, it looks like that's going to be his true actual backup. They did not draft him to replace James Conner this year. It looks like James Conner is going to be receiving the bulk of the workload. And probably for like the past 4 or 5 years, people have been writing off James Conner. And for the past 4 or 5 years, James Conner has been leading teams to the fantasy football playoffs. So just keep that in mind. Keep James Conner in the back of your head when fantasy football draft comes by. If he's there in like the 6th, 7th round, don't be afraid to scoop him up because he is going to be receiving the bulk of the carries, especially at the beginning of the season.
All right, let's move on to the Ravens.
It's Baltimore.
Fantasy purposes, obviously Derrick Henry is that guy. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, they're both on the Chargers now, along with Greg Roman, adding to, what Harbaugh's trying to do over there. But obviously, they're still going to be a very run-heavy team, despite what we saw in the playoffs against the Chiefs. Still feel like, I don't know, like the Swifties might have paid a heavy price. Hey, Harbaugh, no running, just pass it. But I feel like Derrick Henry's going to put that pressure on them to continue to run the ball. They kind of remind me of the Cowboys, the AFC version of Cowboys, where it's like they're really thinking towards late winter in terms of everything. They're going to have a good regular season. Isaiah Likely, I think they need to use him a lot more, along with Mark Andrews, some 2 tight end sets. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. I think the Ravens are going to be really good. They're going to be coming for blood, so I would invest a lot into their offense, especially fantasy-wise. What do you think?
Every year around this time, we get the Rashad Bateman is doing everything he's supposed to be doing. He's excelling. He's playing well, and I believe him every single time because he's going. I think that he has had some bad luck with injuries and just having time with Lamar Jackson. This is like the first all season since he's been drafted where he's not dealing with any injuries. Lamar isn't dealing with any offseason injuries, and they also aren't dealing with Lamar's contract situations and any type of disputes. So he's been available all training camp and all offseason, and so has Lamar. I think this is the year where he actually does produce, and I think this is the year that the Baltimore Ravens offense as a whole in general is pretty cohesive. And also when it comes to Isaiah Likely, they have had reports come out that he's going to be kind of used as like the pseudo number 2 wide receiver in a way. I do believe that he does deserve more looks. They're just going to have they might not have 1 or 2 players that kill it on offense, go over 1,200 yards receiving. But at the end of the day, they could have some solid guys that you could put in the flex spot of your fantasy football teams that help carry you throughout weeks, especially throughout the bye weeks. Zay Flowers is still going to be a solid player. He's going to produce. Obviously, Mark Andrews is going to produce if he's healthy. And then the good thing about Isaiah Likely is that if he is showing that he's producing on the football field as a second option or even getting anywhere between 4 to 5 targets a game, if you're picking him up and anything happens to Mark Andrews, you already know you have a solid wide receiver that's going to be able to solid pass catcher at tight end that's going to be able to probably produce for you in that spot. So definitely look for the Baltimore Ravens offense as a general to take that jump this year, and excited to see what they got in store for us.
And side note, they also drafted Tez Walker.
Yeah, I just don't think.
I'm not saying to go pick him up with your late round pick. I'm just saying the Ravens tend to have some injuries at the receiver position. Some teams just are injury plagued at certain positions. We saw that with the Chargers, and they got rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I would, if you're heavily invested with the Ravens, let's say Zay Flowers starts off hot, and you're knock on wood, God forbid, he's healthy all season. Tez Walker might be a good look. He ran a 4.3 40, and he's a field stretcher himself. So just throwing that out there, 4th round pick.
All right, now we're off to the Buffalo Bills. If you want to take this one.
The Buffalo Bills, the youngins like to say that boy Keon Coleman has that aura, boy. A lot of that, everything really goes into him. Yeah, I think they traded out of the first round and still was able to get him. Ended up having Xavier Worthy end up on the Chiefs. But I think Josh Allen needed a fresh start with the wide receiver one. Obviously, there's always been a weird little relationship going on with him and Diggs. Diggs has a fresh start. And I think the Bills completely revamped a lot. They lost a lot on defense. So I feel like they're going to be in a lot of shootouts this year, personally. I feel like they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. What, you don't think so?
No.
I got you. But Curtis Samuel, very underrated player. I think he'll be a nice little surprise for people. Obviously, Josh Allen, if you could get him at a good value, maybe in like round 2, end of round 2, round 3, and maybe you want to do a stack with him and Keon, who people might not. So it depends on what type of fantasy drafter you are. Some people don't like taking rookies at all. Some more veteran, more seasoned fantasy or just football fans in general should be pretty high on Keon. But don't forget about Dalton Kincaid as well. That'd be a good stack to go along with that.
Yeah, I just think it's hard for me to kind of have an opinion on the Buffalo Bills. They're definitely a team for me personally. I'm just going to watch and see how it plays out this season. Obviously, I'm never in a position to really get Josh Allen, and I do think that he's a talent. He's kind of like Cam Newton, and he's always had Stephon Diggs there to his number one wide receiver. This will be the first year that he's kind of doing the Patrick Mahomes. Okay, I don't have my number one, but I'm going to be the guy that makes sure that, we win football games with my arm talent and just getting it to all the guys. The players on his team do have great traits, though. Coleman, his size, it's a mismatch for teams. Dalton Kincaid, he's basically the pseudo slot wide receiver, tight end, but he's not in line. Dawson Knox is still on the team. He inline wide receiver. And, there were reports that came out that he missed practice due to a groin strain. But, don't worry about that. It was just basically for precaution reasons. He's still healthy. I don't think it's going to be anything that lingers. He is an older player now, so he's probably just getting a little bit of a rest day. And they just want to take it easy with him because this is a grind. And they probably expect to be playing a very, very long season that goes into, the playoffs. I think with the Buffalo Bills, it's just tough because they do have some talent at running back, but at the end of the day, their goal line backer is Josh Allen. And, it's just for fantasy football reasons, like James Cook, you see him play, you're like, wow, this guy can run the ball.
Don't downplay James Cook, especially if you're in full PPR.
I wasn't going to downplay him at all. I was saying that he was a special runner, and when you see him run, you're like, yo, this guy is good. But at the end of the day, when they're in the goal line, their goal line back is Josh Allen. So in fantasy football, what's important are touchdowns. And they also drafted Ray Davis too. So between Ray Davis, Josh Allen, these bigger wide receivers, huge tight ends, and also there was a report saying that Curtis Samuel was in the backfield during the goal line, and he scored a touchdown. So they have a lot of options.
He does have a lot of experience doing that for sure.
And they got swift army knife type of interchangeable players on offense, which could make them a potentially very fun offense to have, but it could also be a headache some weeks too, because we just don't know consistently what we'll be getting from that football team, from that offense at least. And like that's just kind of what it is with them. It's going to be a fun year. We're going to find out a lot about Josh Allen as a quarterback, and people that are still have their doubts about him. Either they're going to be able to say, "Oh, see, I told you so," or he's going to kind of show like, no, he deserves to be in that top tier of quarterbacks, and not just because he had a talented wide receiver, but because he actually is good at the quarterback position now.
I might have to dip into the Keon Coleman. It depends. We'll definitely get into some mock fantasy drafts, best ball, and all that type of stuff. Start to see where what is it called? Is it Underdog or is it Sleeper that's better with that?
So I really, really good at Underdog. Like, I mean, Underdog is just the resources that I trust. But when it comes to Sleeper, I think they're a very valuable resource too. I use both. I check both ADPs. I check both of their updated fantasy news and notes. That's kind of where I get all my information from. I like Sleeper a lot because they basically have taken that Twitter approach to giving you breaking news, to giving you updates, people comment, all that. It's pretty fun. I like Sleeper a lot, and they are solid with their news and their updates.
Facts. All right, let's move on to the Panthers. Obviously, this is I'm sorry, I can't stop thinking about their front office. But Bryce Young didn't really get a fair shake. I think they went into the season with a terrible mindset, calling him a point guard, saying that he'll just pass. Like they're treating him like he was Pat Mahomes. Undersized, very mobile. But now he has some weapons to work with. Between Adam Thielen, that's still there. That was their guy. If you got Adam Thielen in fantasy last year, you were very pleased with what he gave you for wherever you got him. And now they have Deontay Johnson, which, PPR machine when he was on the Steelers. They drafted Xavier Leggett, speedy guy. They still have Terrence Marshall, Jonathan Mingo. So versus last year, there we go. Okay, right. So yeah, it's going to be tough trying to decide who's going to be that guy for the Panthers. There's going to be a lot to work out. But they've added a lot of talent for Bryce Young, which is what they should have done for their rookie quarterback. They traded a lot to get him. That trade's going to go down in history, depending on how Caleb Williams does this year. But besides that, Xavier Leggett. Now he left practice early with a lower leg injury, unfortunately. But you have any information on that? Oh, precautionary. Okay. So
yeah, it was just he's good, but once you get hurt at this point in the OTAs, you kind of just let them sit out for the day for precautionary reasons.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so once again, Xavier Leggett. They still have Jonathan Mingo, who has been doing well in training camp. Deontay Johnson. So they had the veteran leadership with Adam Thielen. Now that you have Deontay Johnson, I actually really like the wide receiver core now. Could improve with tight end, but they did draft Ja'Tavion Sanders from Texas, who has a lot of promise. So and then Dave Canales, he's part of the reason why Baker Mayfield had that resurgence last year. Won that playoff game against the Eagles. I think it was a great hire by them. So I expect them to win maybe. I think if they win about 6-7 games, that'd be a good year for them. You don't want to steer away from these bad teams just because somebody's going to get points. These are NFL teams. You got NFL players. There's a lot of pride. There's no tanking in the NFL, which is why it's the best sport in the world. So there's going to be someone that goes off. Pay attention to the Panthers, especially with the early waiver wire. And, you want to talk about the running backs also?
Yeah, just keep an eye out. I know everybody loves Jonathan Brooks. They love him as a talent, and they think that he's going to be a special football player. I actually agree. He probably was the number one running back on the board this year in the draft. However, he is battling back from a torn ACL, and because of that, they aren't going to rush him. They're definitely already basically saying that he should be ready by week 3 or 4, which makes Chuba Hubbard a huge, huge steal right now in NFL drafts and fantasy football drafts due to the fact that he's probably going to be getting a lot of work in the passing game and probably in between tackles. Like you said, Dave Canales had just came over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Rashad White had a bunch of check down catches and a bunch of passes out the backfield. Wasn't really that good in between the tackles. He was serviceable as a running back, but
He's like an
even
Austin
if
Eckler type.
yeah, but not even as good as him. He's just going to give you that production based off of how the offenses ran. And if we're talking about half PPR or PPR leagues, someone like someone like Chuba Hubbard could really be beneficial for you, especially during that first quarter of the fantasy football season, where he might be not necessarily a good running back on paper or anything special, but he's averaging 60 yards a carry, 60 yards a game with 4 to 5 catches out of the backfield. That right there can be a solid number 2 running back for you that produces anywhere between 10 to 12 double-digit points, fantasy points for you per week. So that's just something to consider, especially when talking about the Carolina Panthers, and especially if you were targeting Jonathan Brooks. They also spent a lot of money this offseason on revamping their offensive line. So just look out for the Carolina Panthers. And like he said, if you think that they can win anywhere between 6 or 7 games, I'm pretty sure right now
Ceiling.
their win total is at 5.5. So if you Matt, you should actually go ahead to your local book and sprinkle a little bit on them to go over.
I don't know if I'm doing that, but it's not a bad bet. It's not a bad bet because it's
Right.
not the strongest division.
I wouldn't probably do it just because I don't know about the Carolina Panthers organization like that. But if you feel confident that they can kind of get to 6 wins just based off of grit, you never know. I mean, they're in a division with the Saints, so
Yeah. And on top of that, you have to fantasy wise, you got to look out for teams that they're going to be in these games where there's going to be garbage time. There's going to be having to pass it a lot. And with a young quarterback like Bryce Young, like you said, with Dave Canales, there's a lot of checkdowns to Rashad White. That's, once again, boosting up Chuba Hubbard. Keep an eye on him because it helps out a young quarterback like Bryce Young where you're trying to rebuild his confidence to have that easy dump-off option. And once again, they lost Brian Burns to yours truly, Spider-Man. So who they have still? Derek Brooks. Damn, not Derek Brooks.
in the front,
in the middle,
I want to say
Derek Brown.
Brown.
Derek Brown.
Brown.
I'm thinking about the old Chiefs player. But so yeah, their defense is going to be washed. If they don't go over that 5.5, it's going to be probably because of their defense, because they invested a lot of draft capital and the offseason and improving that offense. But enough of the Panthers. Let's get to the Bears, who, pretty ironic. You want to take this one away?
Well, yeah. I mean, Chicago Bears right now, it looks like everything out of training camp is that one, Rome Odunze is going to be a stud, like everybody predicted. And it just looks like the offense and wide receiver core, especially, is going to be talented. But I mean, they have DJ Moore, who just got his extension. They have Keenan Allen, who's one of the better veterans in the league, has been solid and dependable as long as he's healthy for over a decade now. And he's looking to prove to let people know that he's still good at football. He's looking to let people know that, he can still do this at a high level. And they have the franchise quarterback that they've never had before. So again, when it comes to Chicago Bears, I think basically all the reports and everything coming out of the camp is that everything's as good as average on offense. We'll see what they do on defense. But yeah, if we were talking from a fantasy football aspect, what I would probably do is still wait on Roman Doomsday, because it looks like he's the last one out of that group to be drafted. Yeah, so I would take him after Keenan Allen and DJ Moore were selected. But if Keenan Allen
Would
is
you
falling,
over Roman Doomsday? I'm taking Roman Doomsday personally,
see,
just based off
I'm
Keenan Allen's injury.
yeah, me personally, I'm taking Keenan Allen, especially if it's a half PPR or PPR league. I'm taking
It's a
Keenan
good
Allen
point. It's a good point.
because
Yeah,
he
yeah.
and like I think that Roman Doomsday will be a star, and I think that he's also going to flash. But Roman Doomsday can very well flash and have 850 yards and 8 touchdowns, and whereas like Keenan Allen might have 111
100
targets.
catches.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
exactly. He's who Caleb DJ Moore and Keenan Allen is who Caleb Williams is gonna lean on at the beginning of the season. Like they're still rookies. Roman, Caleb are still rookies, and I believe they're going to grow into something special. But I think that first Sunday in September, you're going to depend on the guys. The guy been here before, and you're going to trust them. Like wide receivers, they talk to the and they say, "Hey, man, I look, you might have a little bit of jitters right now. I know you might be nervous, but trust me,
I don't think Caleb's nervous. I think he's ready for the moment. I think
for sure, yeah. And again, I think he's gonna be a special football player, but I just think that first quarter season, veterans aren't a bad idea. I'm not saying that you need to,
no, 100%. I agree with you. And Roma Doomsday gives them a different style of receiver than they have in a DJ Moore and a Keenan Allen in the first place. Fantasy wise, you would want a DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, especially in PPR. You know what I mean? So on top of that, they only had picks. They got a Doomsday, Caleb Williams. They got a tackle, and they got a punter and rusher. So they're ready to go. It's going to be an interesting division. Really excited to see them, but you're gonna have to take a leap of faith. It's a new offense as a whole, and rookie.
They're going to be a fun team.
Yeah, it's going to be dope. Be dope for sure. Because once again, they had the number 1 pick, but it wasn't because of their play.
And then next we're going to the Cincinnati Bengals. We've been receiving a lot. They've actually been one of the hottest teams. Talked about this entire offseason training camp, just because of the player personnel that due to the T. Higgins situation. They already have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL and one of the best quarterbacks in Joe Burrow
too.
And Trey Henderson. But reports out of camp is that Andre, I'm going to get this name wrong, Avicius has been actually having a strong camp. He's been solid, and he has beaten out Jermaine Burton. Now, Jermaine Burton, you guys don't know, is a rookie draft play, 4th round rookie draft pick out of Alabama. He's a solid wide receiver. He's going to probably become a solid wide receiver. I just don't think that time right now is now. I think that eventually he's going to be able to beat out Andre for that number 3 wide receiver spot. But as it turns, Joe Burrow and all the reports out of camp are saying that Andre has kind of been grinding all season, and now he's solidified in that number 3 role. Now that
anything on his name, Trenton Irwin. I know he was kind of doing his thing when they had some last week.
I'm not even sure if he's still on the team, but
no, he's on the team.
But yeah, it looks like they were like the people that were competing for wide receiver 3 were Andre and Jermaine Burton. And also, Mike Gesicki is going to be the tight end. And it's kind of pisses me off that he's getting all of these great reports out of Cincinnati at tight end. And it's not because I hate Mike Gesicki. It's because
do not fuck with Mike Gesicki, bro.
Yes, I do. Bro, no. It's just, I love who is the talented tight end that was in the draft that I wanted all of them. Not Michael Mayer.
Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers. I want bad for Brock Bowers to get.
That's why. Yeah. You did really want that. That would have been perfect.
Exactly. I wanted so bad for him to get to Cincinnati, because this was what I was seeing. I was seeing the great receiving mismatch down the seams. You got double teamed. You had to double team and worry about Jamar Chase. You got your second best or your best.
Well, blame the Falcons for that. I think if the Falcons went defense and then They
it
would have
was
got the Raiders would have got
right.
Michael Penix, and then
Yeah.
that might have been a possibility. Who'd they get in the first round? They got
Who? They drafted a tackle, which I mean, Mims, Darius Mims, huge tackle, 6'8" out of
oh yeah,
Georgia.
Marius Mims.
Marius Mims, and like again, good pick. I really, really wanted it back. I just did. Okay, it's all good. And as for the running backs for the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously it's been Chase Brown and Zach Moss talked about all off season. I like Zach Moss as a running back. I think he's a solid running back. I think he's a
Really did
solid.
his thing last year.
Right. But they're competing, they're neck and neck. I think that Chase Brown has a lot of juice. I think that he's one of those running backs that maybe he doesn't have 25 touches per game in him, but even if he only got 10 to 12 touches, he would make a lot out of it. He would make a lot of those carries and those touches, and he would be a strong consideration for a flex play because he's so electrifying with the ball in his hand that it's probably not going to matter that he isn't touching the ball as much as Zach Moss is. I would kind of compare it to a situation to where considering him like a poor man's A-Chain, Devin A-Chain. A-Chain maybe not will never carry the ball 23 times for the Miami Dolphins. But if he touches the ball double digits, best believe he's got over 75 yards in a touchdown. Like he's just that electrifying. And I feel that same way about Chase Brown, where you're drafting Devin A-Chain anywhere between rounds 2 to 3. If you get lucky, you might be able to draft them in round 4. You'll probably be able to get Chase Brown in the back end.
Where are you getting this Chase Brown love from? Like where is this coming from?
I mean, he's an electrifying player. I mean, by his player profile, all of his measurements, even what he did last year when why am I missing everybody's name right now? When the running back when Joe Mixon went down, he was playing, and again he didn't get that many touches, but the touches he did get,
4 yards.
Yeah. So he's a solid running back, and I think that they have a nice little 1-2 punch.
For sure. All right, Cleveland, Groper Cleveland. The interesting case. This is like, hey, Deshaun, you had your weird situation over there, but super talented roster. Don't want to waste that roster. I hope Nick Chubb comes back and he come back swinging. Oh, it really got to him, that injury, and I really in terms of the rest of the roster though, if you want to take the flyer on Deshaun Watson, you can go ahead, but they also have, just in case anything happens to him. Damn, they really put these backup quarterbacks. Did you know they have Jameis, DTR, and Tyler Huntley? That's kind of crazy.
I mean, you got to remember they needed all of them last year. They needed Joe Burrow. They needed Joe Flacco last year. So
Joe Flacco's doing his thing. Joe Flacco earned himself a little bag.
Right. So when that happens, I understand it. Especially when you're like Browns last year, there's people in that organization that probably felt like even if Deshaun Watson was just healthy, they could have did some things, So the fact that they were able to get to the playoffs without any of their quarterbacks, essentially, and had to get a guy off the street, they're like, look, we don't want to be in a position like that again, where Deshaun Watson goes down, the season has to be over. And again, it's not to say that
they definitely made sure that. I mean, I think do not sleep on the Browns. I mean, besides all the depth at quarterback, you can only play one quarterback. So hopefully Deshaun Watson's that guy. And if Nick Chubb, slow start or they want to ease him back in, they still have Jerome Ford who was doing his thing. They pick up Dante Foreman. They picked up Nyheim Hines.
So quick little injury update on both Nick Chubb and Dante Foreman. So Deontay Foreman, obviously we know he had a serious or scary neck situation that happened on Thursday of last week, but he turns out everything's okay. It was a neck injury, but it wasn't a serious neck injury. It just turns out they just wanted to, for precautionary reasons, obviously, get the CAT scans. Everything was okay. He was apparently laughing in the hospital. And, everything's going to be fine with him. But for Nick Chubb, the good news is that he is making progress in his recovery. He's been running around. He's been cutting. He actually is still probably going to be on the PUP to start the season, but the goal is probably for him to come back around week 4 or week 6, whenever you're back from the pub, and they'll ease him in. I still would probably consider Jerome Ford in those late 12 rounds of draft, just because he is going to be solid. Again, solid running back at the end of the football season. You don't need him to carry you throughout the year. You know, when I think about fantasy football, I think that you got to break them down into quarters. It's the first quarter of the fantasy football season. It's the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And as long as you have serviceable players at the beginning of the year, while you're figuring out your roster and while you're figuring out who's going to be the ones that are going to be supporting your fantasy football team seriously and the ones that you're going to be interchanging, these are the type of guys that kind of help you for running back 2 situations and stuff like that. And even if you want to do something where you do draft Nick Chubb, put him on the IR, and you have Deontay Foreman or you have Jerome Brown, you're using them. And then once Nick Chubb eases back in and you see, okay, he's back or he's a good player or, you know, whatever it is, you can kind of address the situation from there. So that's kind of how I would play it with Nick Chubb. Those are the updates on the running back situation with the Cleveland Browns.
And then with the Browns as well, their receiving core, obviously, Amari Cooper, great player. They got Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. I would focus on Amari Cooper. Jerry Judy's kind of like, you got to show me. You know what I mean? I'm personally not going to touch him. And look, he's dealing with a knee injury. I'm just not touching him. And then
I just think that's his biggest issue, man. I mean, I just think he's obviously talented. He's just always something, whatever the situation is. And like they said, it is minor, but you know, the best ability in the NFL is availability.
I feel that. I think if I were to draft anybody from the Browns, I would focus on David Njoku. I always thought he had the potential to go crazy. I think last year he really showed once again. I know a couple years back, I was like, damn, this nigga is built pure African athletic strength like this. I was disappointed in his 2022 season, but he really showed what I thought he really could be. And I think he's really going to break out this year, especially if, you know, Jerry Jeudy's not available. I'm very high on David Njoku. So yeah, that's it on the Browns, and let's get it to your team.
All right. Yeah. Okay. We're talking about the annoying Dallas Cowboys. I'm gonna just give it to you. Listen, yes, Jeff Kavanaugh did come out and he said that Rico Dowdle is the best running back on the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, that is true. That is actual fact. But the Dallas Cowboys love them Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott will get the first carry. Regardless of the situation, Ezekiel Elliott is going to be the starter for the Dallas Cowboys. When Jeff Kavanaugh came out and said that Rico Dowdle was standing out as the best running back, he was implying that just because he wasn't running with the first unit every single time and it was still Zeke, he was just like, listen, this is the guy with the most juice. When I'm watching and evaluating the Dallas Cowboys training camp, this is the player at running back position with the most juice. He's probably the one that should be.
What about Deuce?
Deuce. They're trying to find a place for him. Hopefully
they would go throw him on some screens, some little running turnarounds,
right.
You know.
But you know, and this is not to go out and say draft Rico Dowdle. Nobody from the organization, nobody that follows the Dallas Cowboys is telling you to go out and draft Rico Dowdle. We are telling you that is probably the best running back on the team right now as it stands. But there's a lot of politics that goes on with the Dallas Cowboys organization. And as much as they say they care about winning, they care about relevancy, they care about selling tickets, and they care about selling jerseys more. And Ezekiel Elliott used to wear number 21, and now he wears number 15. I don't know what I'm going to do if I see somebody with the number 15 Ezekiel Elliott jersey in that stadium. However, it's probably going to happen. Zeke is still a fan favorite. Organization loves him as a person. He is one of Dak Prescott's best friends. And, you know, it's just a very, very annoying situation. That politics doesn't come into play and they do the right thing by the time the season starts. But that is just the situation when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys and the running back situation. As for the wide receivers, it looks like Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks are playing very, very well. Looks like Jalen Tolbert is going to be the one that takes over that position. I call him Big Uno. He's got his confidence. He's playing well. And, we don't have our big play guy practicing right now in CeeDee Lamb, but it looks like Jalen Tolbert is playing well. Not saying he's replacing him, but Dak Prescott is passing it to him and Jalen Brooks, and they're catching the ball. He's making the right reads. They're where they need to be at. And Jalen Brooks is probably a guy who will be like that bigger wide receiver for us, kind of in that Michael Gallup role, who should be running the slants into being that possession wide receiver. Jalen Tolbert will be the actual number 3. But as for like a fantasy football implications, don't focus on them. Just focus on Jake Ferguson, obviously CeeDee Lamb, if you're lucky enough to have that top 2 pick, top 3 Cooks. Those are the 3 main guys that be pass catchers, with me personally believing that Jake Ferguson will be the number 2 pass catcher on the Dallas Cowboys this year.
Yeah, and me personally, just for future references, we're going to be doing a lot of fantasy football content here soon. I personally have a no NFC East rivals rule, but I agree with Austin 100%. And then, Dak as well as a quarterback. I mean, I think he'll elevate some of those other guys despite, the how the media treats him. Dak's, top 10 quarterback in the league. Very, very good fantasy wise too. I mean, he slings it.
Yeah, and everybody has their opinions on this guy, and that's why me personally, I'll let you have what the opinion you want. If you think he's underrated, okay, he's underrated. If you think he's overrated, all right, he's overrated. If you have all those opinions about one person, it only comes to the fact that he's just rated. He's rated. He's a good. You don't have to love him. You don't have to like him. Fantasy football has nothing to do with playoff success, so it doesn't even have to do with games won, even though we've won 12 3 years in a row. But yeah, just try his best, but to take your heart out of it when it comes to Dak Prescott. I know a lot of people can't be logical when it comes to that player because of the team that he plays on, but if outside looking in, he can help you win a lot of games in fantasy.
For sure. Yo, see chat.
Yep. Okay.
Pause it.
Oh.
Hey, Denver Broncos, obviously. The big thing with them is they have Bo Nix now. I think from the beginning, I thought that's where they were going. Seems like a real Sean Payton guy. Sean Payton, his issue with Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson is an improviser, and that's just not Sean Payton's style, as you can see with his years with the Saints and Drew Brees and whatnot. Bo Nix kind of fits that mold. Now, with Jerry Jeudy gone, I'm very high on Marvin Mims. Obviously, Courtland Sutton is a stud. I like Josh Reynolds is a good pickup, so their receiving core is looking great. And then, the big question mark to me is Javonte Williams. I've always been really high on him, but I'm not really sure if you could really rely on him. That's going to really be up to you. We'll get more into that later. Jaleel McLaughlin, Sean Payton really, really believes in him a lot. And he was praises last year. So,
he loves him. He loves him.
Yeah. So, I would look out for Jaleel McLaughlin as well. That's a nice little late rounder, especially if you got a lot of casuals in your fantasy group.
Yeah. We do have to pay respects again. Usually, when it comes to coach speak, you kind of gotta have a coach speak radar of like who lies and who tells the truth. One thing about Sean Payton is a lot of things. He actually isn't a liar. So when he says that he likes Jaleel McLaughlin, yeah. If he says he likes player, he likes him. And if he says Javonte Williams is coming back and he's playing, looks like a different player, you got to take into account that Javonte Williams, even though he was back and he was ready to play last season, he did have to come back from a torn ACL. So, and he had to deal with all the offseason talk of him maybe not being on his team because of them drafting Audric Estime. So he could potentially actually be good, and he still has been receiving all the first team reps. He's getting first team carries with the Denver Broncos. So I know there was a beat writer that came out and suggested that he possibly could be one of the guys to be cut, but don't read into that. I think that
who could be cut?
Javonte Williams. Don't
See,
because they have
we gotta
Andre.
get
Yeah,
into those because it's Samaje
yeah,
Perine. Like, come on, let's be real.
right, right. So,
Javante
but
was drafted in what, second round?
second round of the 2022 draft, I believe. So just don't read into those type of think pieces because they are think pieces. They're not. It's not a report. So when it comes to
Looking for
just
clicks. Looking for
yeah,
clicks.
just keep it in mind. Just keep it in mind.
Oh,
You
and almost forgot this. This is very important. Bo Nix actually, he has somebody he had back at Oregon, which is Troy Franklin, who they drafted as well. I haven't heard much out of camp with him, but obviously, it's been like a
so he's not really getting. He's like right now. He's like the fifth wide receiver on the depth chart. Like right now, the wide receivers that's running with the is Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Josh Reynolds, and those are the
Tim
ones.
Patrick, I'm guessing, is above him too. Yeah, but I'm just saying, if anything happens, do remember they do at least have that connection. It's not the Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow connection, or the what was it, Tua and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that, but just something to keep an eye out on some, injuries when it happens. It's a part of fantasy, it's a part of football, it's a part of sports. So yeah. Let's move on to the Lions though. Lions, Jameson Williams has been getting a lot of hype. Hoping he could be what we expected him to be. He's just he's susceptible to injury, but he's a speedster. So, and Jared Goff, he just got paid. He's how do you feel about, we could get into a little bit about your quarterback drafting strategy, but is that somebody you'd look out for in the later rounds, just given what he was able to do last year?
My quarterback strategy has changed since last year, the injuries and all that, where you were just happy to have a quarterback. So he definitely would be one of the quarterbacks that I would consider, not necessarily maybe with in the first 12 to 13 rounds of the draft, but if he's still available, near when people are getting kickers and defenses, all that, I wouldn't mind drafting him to be a solid backup. When he's playing in a dome, he's solid. The only reason he'll never be considered as a top 12 fantasy football quarterback is because he doesn't run. Right, he's mobile, and he's kind of trash if he has to play in cold weather. But he plays in Detroit, where they have a dome. Not really his problem. Yeah, there's no problem with Jared Goff. Solid backup QB2 for your fantasy football team.
Your backhanded compliments be so funny, bro.
Because they're not necessarily backhanded compliments, because you know what I mean. That is true, and when we dive,
technically he is type thing.
Yeah,
but besides that, though, the reason why you might want Jared Goff is obviously besides Jameson Williams, they have their wide receiver one in Donovan Peoples-Jones. It's Sun God. Amon-Ra is that guy, and then Sam Laporta, as you said, and they have, in my opinion, the best O-line in the league. Taylor Decker, Glasgow, Ragnow at center, best center in the league. Kevin Zeitler playing well for him, former Giant. We just can't get the lineman right, and Penei Sewell. So Jared Goff, his criticism is when he doesn't have time in the pocket, he's not as good. Well, he's going to have time in the pocket, and don't forget about that running back unit either. If you could get either David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs, grab them. And whenever it's good value grab them with that O-line. Grab them.
See if we can find anything on Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm trying to see if I could find anything on some of the. Was that Mir? No, that was Jonathan Brooks. But yeah, no, Joe right here. Yeah. See, so again, Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those players. He is going to catch her out the backfield, and he's going to run in between the tackles. He has a personal side bet with his teammate, Sun God, about him receiving 1,000 yards pass catching and 1,000 yards running. Maybe he won't be able to reach those gaudy goals, but the fact that he could even get to close to 400, anywhere over 400 yards receiving, and he's still 1,000-yard rusher is going to be awesome for your fantasy football team. So yeah, always consider him.
Yeah, I would put a lot of stock into Lions players for sure. And then we'll get into some of the sleepers like Laporta, perfect example of if you were paying attention to some of this training camp stuff, Laporta was that guy. And me and Austin's league that we're in, Austin has a couple leagues that I'm not in, and vice versa. But in the league that we're in, I got Sam Laporta in the last round. It was my tight end for the rest of the season. So we'll get into some of them sleepers. But next is it the Texans?
Yeah, no, we're Houston Texans.
Texans, pretty obvious. It's a crap bad way. They added Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell, he got hurt, but beast. Obviously, when CJ Stroud got drafted, he went out of his way to be like, yo, get him for me. Like, they became friends, I think, during the combine?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nico Collins is a beast. He's 6'5". He was, I believe, either a late first round or a second round pick years ago. He was just hurt. And then, they had Davis Mills throwing him the ball. But they scooped up Joe Mixon, which is great. Once again, Stephon Diggs. So it's really, you're going to want any guys, because what CJ Stroud did with Noah Brown, what he did with, he's a distributor. That offense is only going to get better. And just like the Lions, you can't really go wrong with who you have with the Texans if you want to go that route.
Right. Yeah. And that's basically it when it comes to the Texans. We know what they are. Right now, it looks like Stephon Diggs is doing well, playing well. He has he's getting connection. I can't think of it right now. I don't know why I'm
Stroud
on the quarterback. CJ Stroud. And coming in, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, they're going to well. This is going to be a solid offense. Simple as that. CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, they all deserve to be drafted where they're going to be drafted. I would probably personally want to get Nico Collins just because I like him as a big wide receiver. I don't mind Tank Dell. If I ended up with Stephon Diggs, I wouldn't be upset either. So yeah, there's just.
So you would rank it Nico, Tank, Diggs? If it was
I might rank it that way, but I would be fine if somebody ranked it a different way. That's yeah.
Gotcha.
So whoever you want, because I think Dell's going to be the last one to get drafted. So in my rankings, I'll draft the last one. I think that no matter what, Stephon Diggs probably goes before Tank Dell. So that's what I'm saying. I'm okay with Tank Dell.
Yeah, a strategy I would use with the Texans is if you could get Stroud as your quarterback, and I'm not a fan of drafting quarterback too high. It's just kind of like if you could get him in that late second round, it's like the sweet spot for your Mahomes and your Josh Allens and whatnot. That's where I'd go, and it'd be easy to stack with just anybody, even if you could get like Tank Dell for your flex. There's that. Let's move on to the Packers. So with the Packers, obviously, Jordan Love just got paid. They have the youngest team in the league, pretty much. And in terms of the receivers, Christian Watson, what's Reed's first name? Jay Reed.
Jaden Reed.
Yeah, Jaden Reed. And then Luke Musgrave they got over there. It's going to be one. They don't really have like a surefire wide receiver one now. I do feel like that's going to be more clear by midseason. This is actually the guy. You might shoot at Christian Watson, and it turns out to be Reed, and you're blown about that, and Watson gets hurt again. But I would invest in the Packers as well. Obviously, they got a lot good there, kind of showing that their coach wasn't an Aaron Rodgers merchant. So, when it comes to the offenses I like to invest in, I really think about the coach, and they got a lot good there. Yeah, it's Jaden Reed. Oh, Romeo Doubs, of course. And they added Josh Jacobs to go along with A.J. Dillon. I know you're a huge fan of A.J. Dillon, so what are you drafting him in the 4th round, bro?
Me being a fan of A.J. Dillon is actually hilarious. But no, but like he said, like he says, it's what they're believe in all their wide receivers. Simple as that. Believe in all their guys. They're solid. You should have no problem with whoever you end up with. I wouldn't necessarily overdraft them, but at the same time, them being on your football team, they're going to help you win games. They have a lot of wide receivers that I don't mind having him. Yeah, I might believe Jaden Reed is like a good football player. I think he's going to be the healthiest, and I think he's the most talented. I think Watson would be the most talented if he could stay healthy. But again, availability is your best ability in football. And Dontavian Wicks is also amazing football too. So basically, like I said, high confidence in the Packers offense. Simple as that. When it comes to AJ Dillon, he is going to end up being the running back too, or he is right now. I know a lot of people earlier were drafting Marshawn Lloyd pretty high in best ball and all that. That's why it's better to wait until August to start doing best ball and fantasy drafts and all that, because this is when we start to get information. Yeah, this is when we get the most information. And Josh Jacobs, again, Josh Jacobs, I believe, last thing on this, like I just believe Josh Jacobs could be one of those guys that ends up winning you your league at running back.
Yeah. Really, really high on what Josh Jacobs is able to do. You saw what Aaron Jones was able to do. I think Josh Jacobs, health-wise, I think he's healthier, more available. So that's really important. Who's next? Yeah. Your boy Anthony Richardson. Oh my God, if he could please stay healthy, Anthony. Please. Shane Steichen, what they got going on over there, it's going to surprise a lot of people. They scooped up Adonai Mitchell from Texas, I believe. Downs, he's smooth, and then they extended Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce is cool. So they're high potential with them. Jonathan Taylor. That they could really surprise people. Do not sleep on them. And then in terms of, if you have a strategy of drafting a quarterback later, now Anthony Richardson's low-key a fan favorite, so maybe you can't get him that late, but he's a good pick if it's like, you're late in the rounds, you don't have your quarterback yet, because he has that rushing potential. They need to be more careful with him in terms of how they rush him and having him slide and not putting himself in dangerous positions. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to what the Colts can do here.
Yeah. For the Colts, I like them too. I like the Richardson. I like their head coach. Shane Steichen, I believe, is the name of their head coach.
I just said his name. I know you messing up with the boy's name. Yeah, Steichen.
Yeah, and so I like them as a unit, literally offensive line. They still got Josh Jacobs, and honestly, Jonathan Taylor. If you are targeting Anthony Richardson, what I would suggest, just have a contingency plan. If you draft AR, yeah, we want him to play the entire season, but you have to just take in mind that he is a running quarterback, and when he's playing football, he's not thinking about being hurt. He's not thinking about getting hurt. So he's going to play football the way he's always played football, and just have that targeted Jordan Love, or like we talked about, Jared Goff, one of those guys that are being drafted later, but could also be serviceable if they needed to step in and carry your football team for the rest of the year. But for the most part, Indianapolis Colts, I look out for them. I know it's probably like plus 300 right now for them to win their division. So keep an eye on that for all you degenerate gamblers out there. But yeah, now
we got some content coming for you degenerates. Trust. Look out for that. Let's get to the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, this is his year to really prove his stuff. Everyone talks about Caleb Williams is the best prospect since Andrew Luck. I don't know why Sunshine's getting this pass. Like Trevor Lawrence's hype was almost like Zion Williamson's hype to me. So it's been pretty inconsistent. The first year was a wash, but now he has Brian Thomas Jr., which, obviously Malik Neighbors is the hot name coming from LSU, but Brian Thomas is that guy. And I really do think he's going to help elevate that offense to heights that they haven't been to before. With some of the guys they still have in Christian Kirk, they scooped up Gabe Davis, Big Play Davis, or Big Play Gabe, whatever you want to call it. Evan Ingram played very well for him, former Giant. Couldn't make that work, but he's been playing very well for the Jags. So that's a good option at tight end for you, especially later in the rounds, because he's not the sexiest name. And then Travis Etienne, obviously beast, especially for PPR purposes. Their offense should be very potent. And I just believe in Doug Peterson. Obviously, he has a Super Bowl under his belt. So, and Trevor Lawrence is a leader, prototypical quarterback size, and he has all the tools. He has weapons now, no excuses. So they should get after it.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. When it comes to them, they ended up drafting
Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, 4'3", 40, 6'2",
Which
so
is
solid.
nuts.
Yeah, so he's a solid outside wide receiver. I mean, Jacksonville just extended Trevor Lawrence, so he's going to be there for for a long period of time. That's all I really got for them. I mean, I think they're going to be a decent team, and I think that they got some options for fantasy football, especially when it comes to running back. So, just keep an eye out for them. And if you want to drop the handcuff and Tank Bigsby, it looks like he's at a better camp this year than he did last year, coming into his second year. So hopefully he can have a decent backup role for Travis Etienne, and he does wore down throughout the season.
For sure, big Tank Bigsby fan. So the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, apparently, according to his peers, fourth best player in the league somehow. But you know what you got with Pat Mahomes. He's going to distribute the ball very well. Still has Kelsey over there. Rashee Rice really broke out to be their clear wide receiver one, but then they scooped up the speedy Worthy. They have Hollywood Brown. They still have Tony for those trick plays. Obviously, I'm not saying to go out and get Tony, but there's going to be a lot that they could do with that offense. You know what you get with the Chiefs. It's kind of like picking the right guy. For me, I would take Rashee Rice over anything, but I would take maybe a late sleeper on Worthy, Hollywood Brown, field stretcher, and then Pacheco runs hard. Mm-hmm. And, they don't do QB sneaks or anything with Pat Mahomes. So, Pacheco's going to be getting those like goal line touches.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it was the one thing that surprised me right now with the Kansas City Chiefs is that all of their pass catchers, all of their weapons are being underdrafted in their ADPs. So just keep that in mind. And like you said, if they're there, Hollywood Brown, Worthy, Rashee Rice, and even Isaiah Pacheco, like he probably should potentially be a second round pick. And he's going anywhere between the third and fourth rounds. Some people are targeting him to be their back one on running back. Eye out for them. Keep an eye out for any of those players. Don't forget, it's Patrick Mahomes that's throwing the ball to him. So he's probably going to have anywhere between 4,500 to 4,900 yards, anywhere but 30 to 40 touchdowns. And that's going to win you a league if you have these players, especially at that value. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, remember, the Chiefs are good.
Yeah, and besides that, they don't have Jerick McKinnon anymore. So in terms of pass catching, then Pacheco might get a little bit more of that. So that's
the report coming out right now is that he's getting good and he might be able to fulfill those pass catching roles.
It's scary as hell. Scary. Who's next? Rams?
Yeah.
So the Rams, first and foremost, Puka Nacua wasn't a fluke. Guy's a beast. He's a stud. I would draft him over Cooper Kupp. I don't know how you feel about that. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is still Cooper Kupp. He was the Triple Crown winner just a few years ago. Very huge part of that Super Bowl run. Hopefully, he stay healthy, but I'll go with the fresher body that you have Sean McVay running that offense, and that's what matters. So, besides that, who they have at tight end? What's his name?
Tyler Higbee.
Is it Higbee still? I thought they would improve on that. I wish they drafted like a tight end. Higbee's all right though. Higbee's up Blake Corum, which is interesting. But obviously Kyron Williams, really that guy. Also not a fluke. I think the Rams are going to surprise a lot of people this year, especially if they can stay healthy. But you can say that for a team. But when I really believe in a coach, I think Sean McVay is a top 3 coach in the league. So I'm high on them. I'm not really sure about drafting him at Stafford just because of his his injury woes. But whoever's the backup, they're still able to get the ball to Puka and Cup. So I would highly invest into that aspect of the Rams.
Right. And I mean, the Rams, they're going to be one of the best offenses in the fantasy football production, their players. So you're going to Kyron Williams, what he did last year, and that was out of nowhere. I drafted Cam Akers everywhere thinking that Cam Akers was going to be Kyron Williams, and it bit me in the butt. It is what it is, though. I did get lucky. I ended up getting Puka Nacua in some of my leagues, so it worked out for me. Right now, just reports out of camp, just real quick, is saying that he's all the way back. As for Cooper Kupp, and they are going to funnel the football. Sean McVay's a good enough coach to feed both of these players any given week. Who knows who's going to have the better game, but they'll be able to produce a solid amount of points for you, probably somewhere in double digits almost every single week. Cooper Kupp knows this offense like the back of his hand. He still has Matthew Stafford, who's going to be the quarterback for him as long as he's healthy. So you might be if you buy the dip on Cooper Kupp, you could potentially be setting your fantasy football team up for huge success. But however, he is 31 and, could just have some soft tissue problems and it could give you a setback. It's just a risk you're going to have to take. Just keep an eye on him. Keep track of how he's playing and what the reports are coming out of training camp. And when it's time for you to draft, you got to just be able to be at peace with the decision that you make.
And if you're going Cooper Kupp, I would highly recommend get Tutu Atwell sleeper.
Right. And they Robinson, they ended up, and he actually playing really, really well. I can't think of his first name right now, but they had a wide receiver, and at the end of the year, and he actually was producing
Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah, Demarcus Robinson. He actually produced very well. And you got to remember, this is an offense and a team that supported 3 1,000-yard wide receivers before. So not saying that Demarcus Robinson is going to be a 1,000-yard wide receiver, or Tutu Atwell is going to come out of nowhere and be a 1,000-yard wide receiver. But it is very possible that Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua can get to their numbers, and they have a solid flex play is either Tutu or Demarcus Robinson for the Los Angeles Rams.
For sure. And once again, Kyron's that boy. The other LA team. So the Chargers, they're an interesting case. They got rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I thought they might keep one and get rid of either Khalil Mack, or they kept Khalil Mack, right?
They kept the players on defense, yes.
Yeah, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. So besides that, you have to think about their new offensive philosophy with Jim Harbaugh. He just won national championship with Michigan. And like he said when he drafted Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors, he believes offensive linemen are his weapons. So, Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater over there. So I would invest into their running backs. Now, they pretty much scooped up, once again, as I said earlier, they have Greg Roman over there, OC, with J.K. Dobbins, with Gus Edwards. So I think it's going to be a heavily running team. They have Ladd McConkey now, which I've been hearing a lot of good things at camp with him. They still have Josh Palmer and Guyton. But I would, take a flyer on McConkey if, you see him later in the rounds. Quentin Johnson, struggling as it says. I would avoid his cost, to be honest. But yeah, I'm more so going for the running backs. I don't even think I really want to draft Justin Herbert unless it's like really late, to be honest.
Yeah, he's one of the teams. I'm just kind of stay away from the Chargers. I'm sorry, Chargers fans. It's not much we could really say right now. Your football team is they're in a rebuild mode, and they're going to be good. It's just that for fantasy football purposes, they want to win with defense. And I think, they'll be a good football team, but I just don't think that there'll be of serious fantasy football production coming out of that camp. So, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. So the Raiders, they're interesting. Obviously, they're their big move was getting Bowers. They still have what's his name? Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Michael Myers. Mayers. See, I
Yeah.
always get him mixed up with like Halloween, Michael Myers, Michael Mayer. But
Right.
yeah, so kind of focus on one of those two, and then Adams is still there. You're just going to have to hope in terms of their quarterback play that he's able to get them the ball. That's really what you're relying on with them, to be honest.
Right.
I mean, what's your take on the Raiders?
The Raiders, again, it's just tough when the quarterback not that dependable. I mean, they do have Gardner Minshew there, and Gardner Minshew. Hopefully, he can get the ball to Devontae Adams. Like, I don't want to discredit him. As long as he can just keep the engine running, keep it going, I think they'll be solid. They'll definitely be in games. Their head coach is a solid head coach. He's not going to let them quit. Devontae Adams isn't going to let the players on offense quit. So yeah, I mean, I think they have talented pieces on offense and talented pieces on defense. It's just they don't have, one of those blue chip quarterbacks that we all desire for our franchises. But, we'll see what they do. I'm still going to target some of their players, especially because you're not going to have to buy them at a high prices. They're going to be lower desired players. So just keep a lookout for them. If they're there when you're drafting, don't ignore them. Just don't ignore them. That's really all I can say when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders.
And don't sleep on Jacoby Myers either.
Right.
He's a piece for him. So yeah, it's just you gotta bite the bullet on the quarterback play. I think Gardner Minshew last year was heavily Shane Steichen personally, so it's just question mark for me.
All right.
All right, your boy Tua. Obviously, Mike McDonald and McDaniels. Mike McDaniel. Cheetah, Waddle, Achane, Mostert. You know what you're getting with these boys. They're speed all around. The greatest show on surf. So yeah, I mean, you know what players to get from them. They're going to be pretty competitive in that division. I think that is for the taking. They might be able to beat out the Bills finally. They almost did it last year. It really came down to the wire. But it depends on how big of a believer you are in Tua. But you know what? Despite all the knocks on Tua, he is very accurate with the ball. He can play within that offense. And now another year with McDaniel, I think Tua is going to really show his stuff. Even though I'm not the highest on him, it really comes down to the scheme, and schematically, they're going to be really good offensive wise.
I agree. I agree. There's nothing I can say about the Miami Dolphins that he didn't already say. Everybody knows who's going to be good for him. Everybody's extended. Everyone's locked in. They're ready for this season. Let's see what they do. But yeah, draft them when you can. Jalen Waddle, I know he's falling sometimes in the second round. I don't know if in our leagues he's going to fall that far in the second round, but if he's been doing great. He's a good upside third round, second round pick if he's there. But just don't let him get out the second round. That's all I can say. Don't let him get out the second round in your fantasy football leagues. Worry about everything else after that.
And I know last year, in terms of second round receivers, they kind of underperformed, but every year is a new year. So, yeah, I believe in Waddle as a player. I would still get him in the second round, personally, like Austin said.
Yeah.
So, the Minnesota Vikings, JJ McCarthy. What are you hearing about JJ out of camp?
Hearing that the number one quarterback is going to be Sam Darnold. So if that's the situation right now, he's the one that's running with the ones. Again, JJ McCarthy, he wasn't necessarily expected to be a first-year starting quarterback out the gate. I think people really, really are like his intangibles and think that he could become a franchise QB. I don't necessarily know if they were expecting him to be doing that today. But, so I haven't given up on him or anything like that. But I just think right now it's Sam Darnold's show. And I think that, Jay Jettis, and that's that. That's
Yeah,
all we kind
and
of got.
Jordan Addison, they added Aaron Jones, which I think is kind of like a sleeper move if he could stay healthy. Sometimes these quote unquote injury prone players go to different teams and magically they're just available. So I wouldn't sleep on Aaron Jones there, especially if, whether it's Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy comes in or whatever. I think they're going to heavily use Aaron Jones. And yeah, and then don't forget TJ Hawkinson as well.
Right.
Expect a lot from him.
Well, he's hurt, so we have to see when he comes back. But apparently, he's ahead of schedule. But he probably still going to probably start this on the pub. But someone to keep an eye out on because once he is back, he's definitely going to be a very, very serviceable tight end for your fantasy football team.
For sure. Anything else on them? Really, they're kind of like it's really about quarterback play. It's kind of like the Raiders, more like it's kind of like the Raiders. Devontae Adams, Jay Jettas, Justin Jefferson, Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison. Brock Bowers, TJ Hawkinson when TJ comes back. So, yeah. Now, the Patriots are interesting. Obviously, they're in complete rebuild mode. We're in a new era of the Patriots. You have Gerard Mayo over there. He was kind of the incumbent for a while. That was kind of their plan. The Patriots really keep things. They run their team in an interesting way. But besides that, I was very high on Demario Douglas last year. So I think, that's a nice little late round pick if you believe Drake May could come out slinging. Obviously, as a Giants fan, I really wanted Drake May. Clearly, if you're keeping up with Hard Knocks, Giants really wanted Drake May. So it's tough with the Patriots. The offense, it's not projected to be very, very good. But like we said with the Panthers, it's going to, get fed. Whether that's Demario Douglas, I know they got Juju, KJ Osborne, they got Tyquan Thornton, but I would kind of avoid a lot going on there besides maybe like Ramondre Stevenson. They also have Antonio Gibson now. If that's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, again, we love all the fans. We understand New England fans. Very passionate. You guys got 5 Super Bowls, 6 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowls. So, right now you guys are kind of stuck in a rough spot. Not necessarily, one of the fun teams to watch in the NFL, but you guys are growing. So it might be some pains this year, and next year we're talking about you guys as one of the second teams in the NFL. But as it stands today, I mean, there's nothing really to look forward to. Obviously, they did extend Ramondre, so he will probably be getting a solid bulk of the carries. And Demario Douglas in PPR leagues will probably be a nice little player to have. But for the most part, this is a sit back and watch our team rebuild season for you guys. That's just kind of where we're at with the New England Patriots.
Yeah, so be cautious. The Saints. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Spencer Rattler. What do you think about that?
I mean, but again, Derek Carr has a contract. Derek Carr is going to get the first crack. If they're out of playoff contention, or if Derek hurt, they'll love to watch.
Which I doubt.
Right, they'll love to play Spencer Rattler, but for the most, we're going into the season with Derek Carr as a quarterback, which I did not know. He was second in the NFL with the most 300-yard games. I did not know that. So it's funny because you look at Derek Carr and you're like, this guy is just, I don't even know what's up with this guy. But for the most part, he gets a lot of yards. Out of the Saints camp is Taysom Hill. They're going to lean into the Taysom Hill experience,
which they should have been doing, in my opinion. Like
right,
it works, and it works.
Yeah, and he's always been a sneaky little tight end to use whenever your tight end gets hurt or whatever, and he had a few good weeks, goes back to the bench. But if they're going to buy into it and we're able to have him as a actual tight end again, you got to consider him for your fantasy football team. As simple as that.
And don't forget about Alvin Kamara. I don't really see a reason for him. Alvin Kamara just has that dog in him. So don't sleep on that. I would scoop him up if he happens to fall in your league a little bit there. And I would
Right.
definitely take a flyer on Taysom Hill as well, just because besides Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed is a beast, and
Mm.
yeah, it's a weaker division. It's starting to get better, kind of like an underrated division now, but it's for the taking. And they have each other twice, so that's the thing about divisions like that, where it's really, really any given Sunday with those kind of divisions is that they don't sleep on some of the Saints playmakers there.
Yeah. We'll see. Your Giants, you want to go ahead and take care of this one?
And you will be here spelling neighbors wrong and shit. Disrespectful, respectful. But yeah. So with the Giants, DJ, yeah, funny. So with DJ, obviously he gets a lot of hate, man. But the reason why he got the contract he did was never that bad of a contract. Was because he did do his thing under Brian Daboll, won a playoff game against the Vikings, 300 yards rush passing, like 100 plus yards rushing, did his thing there. Malik Neighbors is that guy, speedy offense with Wandell and Jalen Hyatt there. We picked up Theo Johnson, replaced Darren Waller. He's literally Darren Waller 2.0 in terms of his build and everything like that. But the thing with the Giants, I'm not going to be a homer here. It's very questionable in terms of, besides Malik Neighbors, who you really want to get there. I wouldn't Sondell though in the slot. He's really good. A lot of receivers around the league are singing his praises, whether it's CeeDee Lamb earlier, Tyreek Hill was singing his praises. We lost Saquon, but Devin Singletary beat out Damian Pierce for the Texans last year. And Brian Daboll does have experience with Devin Singletary back in his Buffalo Bills days. So I think they really believe in him. So don't sleep on that. But like I said, even I'm not putting my team in that boat with the Patriots and the Panthers. Somebody's going to have to score on the Giants. We scooped up the offensive line coach from the Raiders, which they took a pretty average offensive line, and they were top 12 offensive line over there in Las Vegas last year. And we just scooped up Greg Van Roten. We got Illuminor. So the O-line should be a lot better with Andrew Thomas, 3 left tackle in the league. If he could stay healthy this year, the offensive line should be better. But in terms of the offense, Malik Neighbors is getting a lot of buzz out of camp. He's really crushing it. So, I would dabble in that, especially if you're in a couple leagues. Definitely will take a flyer on Neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, he said it all. I agree. Take a flyer on Neighbors. Outstanding wide receiver. Expected to be the focal point of the offense, obviously. So, that's kind of the Giants in a nutshell. You want to go ahead and take care of New York?
Yeah. Let's knock out MetLife. So with the Jets, they're probably the biggest question mark in the league, with Aaron Rodgers getting injured a couple snaps into the season last year. But we've been seeing a lot of good things out of camp out of Aaron Rodgers. And, not everybody could be Tom Brady, but if anybody could be at Aaron Rodgers' current age and perform, it is him. Garrett Wilson is a stud. Breece Hall is a stud. They scooped up Mike Williams, but I would, take it easy with him, given his injury history and just the turf that they play on over there at MetLife doesn't help with that concept. But if they can stay healthy, that'll be a fun team to watch, especially in that division that is once again up for grabs. Besides the Bills and the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, obviously, we think that the Dolphins are going to be one of the fun teams in the NFL. The New York Jets got some of the fun, like some of the best players to watch too. I had fun watching Garrett Wilson all the way back when he was at Ohio State, and then Breece Hall. He's going to be a solid running back. Probably not going to be drafted no later than 7th in your home fantasy football league. Those are the guys to target: Gary Wilson, Brees Hall. We're going to keep it simple here. These are the guys that is going to win them their football games. Andrews, he going to get the ball to Gary Wilson. It doesn't matter who's guarding them and if there's a double team. And then out of that, they're going to be able to make it. Like Brees Hall is going to be able to. He's going to be up there with Christian McCaffrey and be better running backs in the NFL this year. So we're going to keep it short, simple, to the point. If you maybe needed a backup tight end, you could do Tyler Conklin. Outside of that, we're not touching any of these guys except for Aaron Rodgers, Gary Wilson, Big Brees Hall.
Yeah, and they did draft another receiver in Malachi Corley. I know Aaron Rodgers, sort of like a FU to the Packers, and how he felt like they treated him is, he's showing up to camp. I think he invited Malachi to his house to stay over for a while. So, look out for him, I guess, as well, since, they no longer have Elijah Moore or who's the other whatever. There's not much outside of Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams' injury history. Just know they have a rookie in the slot.
Mm-hmm. And now we got Philadelphia, the Eagles.
Yeah, your favorite squad. Or what you thinking?
I mean, again, when it comes to fantasy football production, Jalen Hurts, target him. Devontae Smith, target him. It looks like he's the one getting the usage out of the slot, which I was kind of surprised. I thought maybe they put A.J. Brown there. But at the same time, I mean, Devontae Smith is still a super talented football player. Being able to have him in the slot is going to be a problem for teams. Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator. He's going to be able to generate some passing concepts that will get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith open. If Jalen Hurts is doing his thing, reading through his progressions, and is a good quarterback, which, he might show that this year in regards of going through his progressions, they're going to have an explosive offense. Only thing I would probably say or suggest is be mindful when you think about Saquon, because even though, yes, he is a talented back, even though he is one of probably the better backs in the NFL, the offense that he's going to be in isn't usually targeting the running backs out the backfield. And when we get close to the goal line, we have Jalen Hurts there kind of taking some of that goal line touchdown, some of those goal line carries with the tush push and all of that. So outside the wide receivers, yeah, Saquon's going to be a nice little option for you, but be mindful that it could not work out the way you wanted to, just because, Jalen Hurts will be doing some of the running too. And if it comes to passing it out the backfield, if there's a situation where he probably feels like he needs to dump it off to the running back, he might just take it himself and run. He might have a little bit of a change of heart to that now that he has, but knowing Kellen Moore and his previous history with running backs, he doesn't really give them the ball out the backfield through the air. So that'll be something to kind of look out for and be mindful of. But yeah, in regards to their big three, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, target those guys. They're going to probably not let you down. They're probably going to have great seasons.
Yeah, and don't forget about Dallas Goedert either. He should be a pretty decent option at tight end for you.
Yeah, he'll be good. All right. Off to Pittsburgh.
Russell Wilson versus Justin Fields. What are you hearing out of camp?
I mean, right now it looks like Russ is kind of injured. Or he's coming back from an injury. So it's not necessarily anything. I think he will be QB1 starting out. It doesn't look like Justin Fields is doing too bad. Looks like he's definitely creating some rapport with George Pickens. And, we just kind of got to wait and see with this situation. Players I would be targeting, though, for that fantasy football team would be the running backs, simply because they have Arthur Smith. And if anybody knows anything about Arthur Smith, he loves running. And he has the quarterbacks for it. He has the team for it. He has the team that it's going to be okay to call football plays and the way he wants to play football. Najee Harris, he's undervalued in a way. So, if you've taken care of your wide receivers and Najee Harris is still on the board, don't be afraid to scoop him up. And later on in the rounds, if you see Jaylen Warren, don't be afraid to scoop him up too, because those are two solid backs. They got a solid offensive line. And we know Pittsburgh is naturally a gritty football team. And Arthur Smith loves to call a gritty football game. That was like some of the issues that he was dealing with as a head coach. with Atlanta, but he's not a head coach anymore. He's the offensive coordinator. He's just solely focusing on offense, and I think that he's going to be able to produce some solid running backs for you.
Yeah, definitely some good running back play coming out of there. Najee Harris is definitely underrated. I don't really get the hate behind him. Just, ignore that noise. If you could get him at good value, I would. And don't forget about Pat Fryermuth either. The Muth definitely does his thing because, they no longer have Deontay Johnson, who was their, kind of their possession guy. They scooped up Van Jefferson, decent Calvin Austin, speedy guy. But like Austin said, with Arthur Smith doing his thing, I would really focus on the running backs and, maybe Fryermuth.
Right. And so, yeah. And I mean, yeah, that's all I say, like, for the most part, like, yeah, like that's basically the Pittsburgh Steelers. We can move on to the San Francisco.
Yeah, with the Niners, any news on Ayuk?
So the news on Ayuk is basically he's going to be on the team. I mean, he's going to be personally. When it comes to like players like Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, I say the same thing. They might want to request a trade, or they might be upset with the way that their football team and
This ain't the
organization.
NBA.
Yeah, but this is not the NBA. I get it. You want to be traded, but we need you to win Super Bowl. And so because we need you to win
You're
Super
under
Bowl,
contract.
yeah, we kind of can't let you go. We're not going to get enough for you in a trade. Not just going to help us win a Super Bowl. So you got to stay on the team until we can't do it anymore. So yeah, this is basically where how I feel, and this is what has been shown in the NFL. They don't just do trades for sport, and people value their draft picks. Brandon Ayuk, you would have to trade probably a first and a third for him, give him a $30 million contract. People aren't going to want to do that. Organizations aren't going to want to do that. He's under contract for the next 2 years, essentially, due to the franchise tag with San Francisco. We all know San Francisco has expectations of going to Super Bowl and winning it. We all know San Francisco has one of the most talented offenses and teams in the NFL. So it doesn't do that organization good to let go of Brandon Ayuk. He's a good football player. It's just not working out contract wise because sometimes you can't pay everybody, and they're negotiating through the media. But at the end of the day, San Francisco, target all their players, target Brandon Ayuk. I know he likes Jalen Daniels because that was his his college football teammate, but he's under contract with the San Francisco 49ers, and he's probably going to suit up and play for the San Francisco 49ers this year.
Yeah, and it's the usual suspects. Christian McCaffrey, he's going to go in the first round. George Kittle, beast, obviously. And then, with the first round pick, they picked up Ricky Pearsall. And when it comes to the Niners, they're just a well-run organization from GM, front office, down to Kyle Shanahan. And I think they picked a guy that fits his scheme. So I wouldn't be surprised if he makes an impact early.
Right. Yeah. So, and then where we at? Where we at?
Seahawks.
Talking about Seattle. Started there. Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's playing well. Look for him to step up this year. There was a scare with Geno Smith earlier this week, but he's actually been fine. And he's even indicated that he plans to run more this year. They're going to be a sneaky team on offense. I would just keep an eye out for their players. If you see Tyler Lockett fall, don't be afraid to draft them. If you're seeing DK Metcalf fall, don't be afraid to draft them. And again, even Geno Smith, I was talking to you guys earlier about contingency plans. So in regards to that, Geno Smith is the perfect quarterback to have for a contingency plan, and especially if he is going to be running more. So just keep an eye out for that team. These are the teams that make your fantasy give you. So just keep an eye out for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Keep an eye out for Geno Smith and all the offensive weapons for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, and then on top of that, they obviously have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So their offense is extremely potent. I mean, that's why Geno is a great option because they have all these options on offense. Noah Fant, I think is an underrated tight end. So, Tyler does it every year. Very consistent. DK Metcalf is a beast. So, yeah, no, you can't really go wrong with any of their weapons there.
Yeah. And like as with after Tampa Bay, I mean, I wasn't able to really receive that much news or find that much news in regards to Tampa Bay this week, but it looks like rookie Jalen McKellen has been coming on pretty strong, and Chris Godwin is going to have a solid season. He's returning back from his ACL injuries. I think it was 2 years ago that he had it. So I think now he's just fully healthy, and between him and the Mike Evans, they're just gonna be solid. I mean, they're here for the 4, 5, 6 years. They got Baker, got a nice little rapport with them. And yeah, I just think that when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially Chris Godwin, again, I know he's not the nice new shiny toy, and these second year breakouts and all that, like that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're targeting due to the upside. But it's the guys like Chris Godwin that end up winning your fantasy football seasons, or even like that. These are the guys that are going to get you through that first quarter of the season, like what I was mentioning earlier. So be afraid when you see Chris Godwin and Tyler Lockett in round 6 and 7. That's going to be fine. Get those guys. Don't let those guys pass you, because Chris Godwin, he didn't forget how to play football, and he's relatively healthy. So just have consideration for some of the veterans that we have in the league.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Chris Godwin. Don't sleep on him. And then mention Rachaad White, PPR machine. And yeah, especially if you're in like one of those super flex, 2 quarterback leagues, Baker Mayfield, just in general, he has moxie and he has the weapons, and he has a lot to prove. They have a decent offensive line, I'd say. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best tackles in the league. So I think it'll be solid. And yeah, it's kind of the usual suspects with them as well.
And then so we're going on to our last two teams, Tennessee Titans. I mean, for the most part, Trent. There's a battle, wide receiver battle for the slot, with Trent Taylor and Traylon Burks, and also newly signed Tyler Boyd. But outside of that, it looks like they're going to try to be interchangeable as slot wide receivers. The outside wide receivers, for the most part, are set in stone with DeAndre Hopkins and also newly signed Calvin Ridley. So they're not
Ridley.
Right. And I mean, I think that they're actually two solid football players. So never really going to be changing those guys out. It will be the slot to be interchangeable. And I mean, right now, DeAndre Hopkins is hurt, but he's a stud, and he's going to demand targets when he's healthy, and he has 4 weeks, 6 weeks to get ready for football season. So I wouldn't. As for Tajay Spears, I was basically saying interchangeable roles. Like Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard are literally the same football player. They're the same football player.
I was wondering what's your take on how you think Tony Pollard's going on.
I think he's gonna be a solid value. You're getting him. He's felt like the people were mad at Tony Pollard, who's selected in the first round or second round of people's drafts, but now he's getting selected between like the 6th and 8th round of drafts. So whatever production he gives you as that second running back on your team, you're not going to complain. And I think that's the same with Tajay Spears. I think that, he might go a little bit later, but again, they do the same thing. They have the same type of explosiveness, and they struggle at the same things also. Short yardage. They're not short yardage backs. I don't think that they're going to be a goal line back, but I do think that they're going to be able to provide a nice little spark to the Titans as an actual football team. But also, I think that they're going to also provide something in regards to them, to your fantasy football team, especially because you're not going to have to spend like a 3rd round or a 4th round pick on these guys. So, yeah.
Thoughts on Will Levis and kind of, distribute the ball to these guys? They got J.C. Latham in the 1st round. So, I think they're kind of putting a lot into that. Peter Skoronski, did pretty decent.
I think that this is going to be the year where J.C. Latham, where Will Levis shows that either he's going to be a franchise QB. Tennessee Titans are going to be targeting QB in the draft. I think that they set it up perfectly to where like there isn't an excuse of, oh, we don't have this, that, and the other thing. We didn't give him what he needed to succeed. He has two solid running backs. You guys just drafted a tackle for him. They drafted another left tackle last year for him. So he has a left tackle, right tackle, two bookends. He also has two solid wide receivers, basically a solid wide receiver core. Even if we include first round pick Traylon Burks in there, along with Tyler Boyd and Trent Taylor, who should be doing some solid work for him. The defense isn't bad. They've spent money there. Yeah, the team is built for success. If, Will Levis is a decent quarterback, if he's not,
the X factor.
Right.
If he overperforms, then they're going to be scary because D Hop, Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Tony Pollard, Tajee Spears, and Aquanco, decent tight end. So yeah, shit. It's all on Levis.
Right. So yeah, and again, I like what they did, because they were like, okay, we're not necessarily going to rebuild, and it's not that we don't believe in our quarterback, we really just don't know. Like, I feel like this is what it looks like when you just don't know what you have at quarterback, and it wasn't like, all right, we're going to just. This isn't a Justin Fields situation where he might add some of the some decent talent in the NFL or whatever. This is he needs. This guy got two booking tackles, supposedly. This guy has two solid running backs. He has pass catchers. So if he's not able to succeed, or if he's the reason that his football team is losing, it's going to show,
No, 100%, 100%. And who they get as their head coach now, was it Brian Callahan?
Yeah, Brian Callahan. And Brian Callahan is he's Bill Callahan's son, one of those offensive gurus. They're going to have the best offensive lines in the NFL simply for the fact that Bill Callahan is one of the best offensive line coaches to ever coach in the NFL. Like, he's solved so many offensive line problems for so many different franchises that, it was crazy that he was even let out of his job with Cincinnati to go with his son. So, was at Cleveland, but wherever he was at, he was either at Cincinnati, and they granted him the release so that he could go coach with his son, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love to see stuff like that. It's a good story. But last team, we got the Commies, and the Jaden Daniel experience starts now. Scary Terry, Johnson, they lost Curtis Samuels, but they did a lot. They had a lot of draft capital this year. They had a lot to spend. They scooped up Austin Eckler. So, he's going to do his usual pass catching duties, which, once again, like I said, with Bryce Young, is really helpful for a young quarterback, just to have that option to, dump off. Zach Ertz, not sure how you feel about him, but, veteran guy. You got anything else on the Commies?
Wait and see. I guess, Jaden Daniels he's gonna be, we're gonna see how good he is. Marcus Mariota is the backup. Yeah, I expect him to play well. He's gonna play well, but I just don't know what they have. I just hope he doesn't rush. I don't know if the offense is ready yet. I don't know if they I know the wide receivers are good, but Jaden Daniels, he's a string bean, man. He's a string bean, and he can run and he can play football well, but
he's got to protect himself.
Right. It's about him protecting himself from himself. Like, when it comes to throwing the ball, diagnosing defenses, I think he can do that. I think he's more than a capable quarterback. I think he's going to have growing pains. And, I'm not necessarily scared of him right now, but I'm excited to see what this season has for him. And if you are looking to buy low on some of these Commander wide receivers, I think Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, I think there's some solid guys to get. They're good wide receivers. They got speed. They can run routes. They can do stuff from the inside, and they can also play on the outside. So in regards to them as football players, I think that they're hell of football players. I think Jaden Daniels is one hell of a football player. I think the only issue is just that it's a toxic franchise. And, I just don't know, Cliff Kingsbury, I'm not even going to lie to you. He's used to coaching drunks. Like, he's just used to coaching party boys. So this is, we're going to see what he has up his sleeve. But I think he can handle them. I think that we'll see what they have for each other. And I mean, you can't knock him. He's a Heisman winner, and the last few players that took 4, 5, 6 years in college, they came to the NFL and kind of prepared for the most part. So I'm not going to sleep on him. I think he was the solid
Yeah,
choice. And
Cole Heisman did have 2 first-round wide receivers, one in the top 10, and then Brian Thomas could easily went earlier. Not trying to knock Jaden Daniels. I personally would have picked Drake May if I were them, so I'm kind of glad they didn't. But they have a nice 1-2 punch at running back, Brian Robinson, beast, and then it's a great 1-2 punch. So they could make something shake. I know you have experience with Dan Quinn. How do you think he's going to do a head coach?
I think that he's lucky to get this last crack at head coaching, and he's going to do a bad job. I mean, at the end of the day, like all these offensive coordinators that you see that became head coaches, they were on his staff when he went to the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur. I don't think McVay was, but I know for a fact those two were. And he doesn't do a bad job at picking offensive coordinators. I'm joking about Cliff Kingsbury always coaching drunks, but he does have a decent offensive mind, and he has relationships with players with the same attributes as Jaden Daniels in regards to cannon arms, out of pocket, throwing off the platform, running, rushing, all of that. So I think that he's going to try his best to have a good turnaround the year. But at the end of the day, I don't know if year one is going to be as successful as they want it to be. But I think that he'll have a nice little tenure here in Washington.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, that wraps up all the teams. We were fantasy focused. We didn't talk too much about the defenses here, but it's August 4th as we're recording this. We're going to get some futures bets for you guys. We're going to get some more fantasy tips, things of that nature as we head into this season. Really excited to see how everything unfolds. And unless you have anything else, also.
I mean, for the most part, I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're back. We're going to have a lot of content for you guys. Really excited to get the season started. Look out for the fantasy news, like we said, and like, love, lock. Just remember that. Matter of fact, we're out. Catch you guys next time.
All right. See you guys.